Welcome to another episode of the Communities of Character podcast. I'm Jennifer Hogan, a former high school administrator, and now I serve as a character coach for local schools. I'm thrilled for you to meet and learn more about today's guest, Liz Huntley. Liz practiced law for over 25 years and most recently pivoted from her role as full-time lawyer to full-time leader at the Hope Institute, a nonprofit she co-founded in Birmingham, Alabama. The Hope Institute partners with schools to help them to create cultures of character through their flagship program, the 3-year Hope Leadership Academy. Liz serves as a motivational speaker throughout the country where she shares her inspirational life story that she captured in her memoir, More Than a Bird. After her mother's suicide and the incarceration of her father, Liz was raised in her grandmother's home where she lived in poverty and faced sexual abuse by her uncle. It was a school with a culture of character and a loving teacher who said to her, "Elizabeth, you're going to be the brightest student I ever have." And that gave Liz hope and changed the trajectory of her life to become a successful attorney and child advocate. I'm grateful for Liz being a part of our podcast, and I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I did. Welcome. Hey, Liz, and welcome to the podcast.
Hey.
Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I am thrilled to get to have this conversation with you and have you share a little bit about your story as well as your work with the Hope Institute, the nonprofit that you co-founded. And I know that I'm grateful to be a part of the Hope Institute as a character coach and to get to work alongside you and so many other wonderful people who are committed to developing character in schools across Alabama. I want our listeners to get to know more about you. Your tagline is attorney by day and child advocate by night. For our listeners who may not have heard your story, could you share a little bit about your background and how you became to be a child advocate?
Sure. So, I guess it takes one to know one in terms of a child that is in need of advocacy. I was born into a home where my parents were drug dealers, and we went through lots of traumatic things throughout our childhood. Me and my siblings did, and ultimately, my mom committed suicide. My dad was in and out of jail, and I was sexually abused. Spent time in foster homes. I mean, just quite a traumatic childhood. But there was also a nice light in that childhood, and it was called my school. And in my school, there were educators that loved me, that encouraged me, that instilled such great work ethic and character values in me to shape me into who I am today, in spite of those things that were going on in my home, which is why the climate, the culture, what's going on in the building, in a school, the relationships that are being developed that serve those children mean everything to me.
Well, you've definitely turned your mess into the message, and you've inspired so many people with your resilience and your passion for educators, making a difference for kids. And you put all this into a book called More Than a Bird. And I'll be sure to post a link to your book in our show notes. And I know that many educators have read this book and shared incredible feedback of how they're inspired and re-energized and really reminded of the power that they have in a school to make a difference for kids. But let's talk a little bit about the Hope Institute. You recently made a professional pivot and you're currently serving in a full-time role now with the Hope Institute. Would you share with our listeners how the Hope Institute started, Liz, and what your vision for the nonprofit is?
Yes, I could not be more excited about this new chapter in my life and in my story. So the book, it continues, right?
Right.
Uh, I've practiced law for over 25 years and been very blessed, working at an amazing firm, Lightfoot, Franklin and White. And I've had so many great opportunities in my profession and will continue to a very limited extent play somewhat of a role at Lightfoot as an attorney because it's in my blood, right? But what's really coursing through my veins right now is my passion for building a culture of character in schools, because nothing aligns with me more in terms of a way in which I can help further my goal of providing opportunities for children, that not just children that grew up with childhood traumas like I did, but all children. My children are in a very safe, loving home. And like a kid who's suffering from childhood trauma, I would want every child to experience the positive experience one has when they have the opportunity to really thrive in a culture of character in a school. And it's a one-stop shop for everybody. There are no children exempt from who benefits from the work that we do at the Hope
Mhm.
Institute, which helps a school build a culture of character. It not only serves the students, but I'm married to an educator. It's a tough job, and it serves the educators as well, because that culture is just as important to them too. If they're having and their cup is full, then they have more to give to their students.
Mhm.
So it is really beneficial for all those involved in that partnership we call a school.
Love that. And I'm excited about the future of Hope Institute. And what I love about the work that we get to do is that there's no one size fits all curriculum or program that's provided to schools. It's truly a coaching model, a coaching approach where character education is more than just one more thing on a school's to-do list. And I know that that was done by intention. And we use a framework from character.org to guide our work. And you, in fact, serve on the board of directors at character.org. So, as long as you've been on this journey of character education and really trying to get everyone to the highest level of understanding, what are some lessons that you've learned and what does character education mean to you?
Wow, I've learned so many lessons, and I have to say I'm only in chapter 1. There are several chapters to go, as we're really a baby organization in this work who really just reached so much success in a short period of time because of the amazing schools and educator and school
Mhm.
teams that we've had the privilege of working with. But in a nutshell, we started this thing out in terms of thinking of just providing the knowledge through the academy to the school teams to give them sort of a information guide, if you will, a deep dive into the work, into the wow, and then supplementing that with the how and how you get there to build that type of a culture of character in your school. And with our first executive director, Dr. Kara Chisholm, who's now our director of professional learning at the Hope Institute, when she was running that first academy for us at Sanford University, our partner, she enhanced the model by not only providing the knowledge, but also providing the assistance with implementation in what we call our facilitator model, and now more lovingly called our character coaches, which are these are professionals that peaked in their profession in education, worked directly with programs that were infused with character education, so they have a true understanding of it as a practitioner, in addition to having had, a leadership role in those environments. So they work alongside our school teams in between the sessions or during the sessions or however they're needed, to help assist them in figuring out what will work for them as far as implementation, because you're right, it does look different.
Yeah.
For some schools that maybe high poverty schools, there's a big focus on resilience, right? A big focus on the caring community. For a school that may be more affluent, there may be a bigger focus on things like integrity or perseverance, or, it's just a matter of what kids are in your building, what are things that are common to them that only the school knows, because they're the ones that are with the students every day, that will help you define what you think should be focused on in that school building in terms of character and values and things that would be important to support those students to lead flourishing lives.
Well, it's so true that every school community is so different with their own needs. And that's what I love about the work at the Hope Institute is that it truly is personalized for each of those communities, to find out what each school needs to work on and for us to get to help them to keep moving the needle to get to where they want or need to be at that time. So I love that. And I love the lessons that you say that you're learning, because that's really the secret to sauce is that you're always a learner. We're always growing and trying to get better at what we do. And In our role, your role and our role at Hope Institute, it requires us to be our best selves. And I would love to hear and for you to share with our listeners what makes you feel inspired and feel like your best self.
Oh my gosh, I don't know that I ever feel like my best self, but I can say, when you feel like something you did that day made a difference for somebody, that's always my best self. I mean, I'm happiest when you walk away from, whether it's me speaking or working with the Hope team or even working directly with the school or directly with kids for that matter, since I have my own little book club of girls that grew up in my community that I grew up in. But that satisfaction of knowing, you know, you being on this earth made a difference for somebody today. You know,
Mhm.
that's my rush, right? That's my
Yeah,
drug. Is what motivates me the most, and that's where I do feel like my best self.
well, that is a great feeling to get to help somebody else. And for our listeners who are just getting to know you, you really are a resilient and driven and motivated person. And, you're also an encourager. You uplift people around you. And you have a great story about your personal encourager, your Wonder Woman. I was wondering if you would share with our listeners a little bit about your personal Wonder Woman.
Yeah, if you could see my face now, you'd see me smiling. Whenever her name is mentioned, it always is accompanied by a smile on my face. Because I had an incredible experience in an early childhood center that was a faith-based preschool that was made available free of charge in my community, and had the opportunity to attend that kindergarten school, and it was a wonderful culture of character as well. Lots of lots of caring, but also lots of pushing for excellence and building of resilience. But when I went to first grade, it was, during the early stages of integration, and my grandmother just put me on a bus and sent me to school. And I was 6 years old, and I
Mhm.
get to school and I have to, because I could read from that preschool training, I was able to read the signs on the wall to navigate my way into my first grade classroom. And I didn't know what to expect. I remember just sitting there, sitting in the front desk, because the ladies at the preschool told me don't nothing good happen in the back of the classroom. So I sat in the front desk and I'm just sitting there waiting for school. And eventually the teacher catches me out of the corner of my eye and she comes to me, and she asked me what was my name, and I just blurted out what my grandmother had told me about registering myself for school. And she paused and realized that I was sitting there by myself at 6 years old on the first day of school. And so she could have done a lot of things in that moment, right? I mean, she could have called child services. She could have, been biased towards me as one of those children, right? Not just racial bias, but just bias against me for, the personal experiences that I was having at that time, and sized me up in a certain category. But instead, she assessed that situation and decided that my glass was half full, not half empty. I mean,
Mm.
she saw a brave kid. She saw a resilient kid. She saw a pretty smart kid. And with all of that, with tears in her eyes, I'll never forget this. She looked me in my face and said, "Elizabeth Humphrey, you're going to be the brightest student I ever have."
Mm.
And those words are stuck with me today. When I repeat them every time I speak, it's like I'm hearing them for the first time. It's just one of those things you never forget. And of course, because preschool had been such a positive experience, I thought, well, if I do smart stuff for her, she'll love on me like the kindergarten teachers did. And I did. And I mean, and she is my Wonder Woman to this day. I mean, you talk about uh, the reading initiative going on in Alabama. Well, that woman, I left out of her room reading on a fourth and fifth grade level. And everybody in my class left reading on grade level from her room because it was such a caring environment. She had such a way within that room to have us feeling like we were part of a family, bringing out the best in us, building resilience, when we struggled, and pushing for excellence. insisting that we all were respectful to one another and empathetic and all of those things sort of wrapped up in one in a classroom. Sometimes teachers say, well, I really want us to do Hope Institute in our school. I'll talk to teachers about it. And it's really something your leader has to be on board to do, or it's really difficult to do it school wide. But I always remind them, you could have a classroom of character,
Mhm.
especially for those teachers that are K through maybe 5, where they have the same group of kids all day in a classroom. What an incredible way to make that impact, to learn about how you can do those things and implement them into the way in which you carry on in your classroom. I know Miss Pam Jones certainly did. And that lady's loving on me to this day because when I gave birth to my second child, she was at my house keeping my first child. And even when I gave birth to that little caboose surprise by my late in life surprise child, she was the first person there to hold him in the nursery. So she was then and always will be my Wonder Woman.
That's amazing. It's such a great story, and you go into detail in your book, More Than a Bird, and I just hope our listeners who haven't read your book will pick it up and get to read more about you and your journey, because it's really really inspiring. Um, just to shift gears a little bit, you mentioned getting to talk to teachers about creating a caring community in their classrooms. And we get to talk to educators from all kinds of backgrounds. And through your work, you get to talk to people at all kinds of different schools and communities. I'm really curious to hear what's one thing that the Hope Institute has done for participants, maybe that you didn't expect.
Oh my, so many things, right? I just wasn't really sure, and you never are when you start something new, right? It's not like there
Hmm.
was a roadmap. We didn't
Right.
franchise something and start it, and the relationships that have occurred between our character coaches and the school teams and the school leaders, where they feel like, they're sort of a peer mentor to them. I don't know that I had any anticipation that that model would grow in such a strong way. Um, and I think it's really the key to the successful schools, the ones that have really, done this work with fidelity, that sort of partnership with somebody right along with you, cheering you on, supporting
Hmm.
you, helping you come up with creative ideas. But the creativity that we've seen in the promising practices have been amazing to me. And by that, I mean, character.org recognizes schools across the country with a national distinction of a promising practices award, which which sort of honors and celebrates some practice that they have going on within their school building that promotes the cultivation of character. And we have had some amazing recipients within the Hope Institute schools for that award. The way in which they've engaged with parents and found ways to get parents in the building that, history would tell us would not normally come around or be interested, creating a sense of community, partnering with local leaders to become a part of the team and the community of the school. I have to say that's the piece that has really been amazing to me, to see this work extend beyond the building itself and go out into the community with the parents and the leaders, has really been impressive. The things that we've seen with schools that are finding these really incredible novel ways in which they are tapping into students that may have traditionally been a behavior problem, but they're now turning that behavior into positive behavior. And they're also becoming influences in a positive way in the school. I mean, just creative stuff. One of those examples is, and I forget the name of what the little team is called now, but some kids in a school that were uh, kind of getting into a little trouble from time to time were then assigned to the lunchroom to help, clean the lunchroom and do things in there. And that's evolved into this whole program where those kids are now, you know, really taking a lot of pride in their role that they have. Not that they're being used as child labor. So let's make that clear, you know, but they're taking pride in their school and they're being rewarded for it, and they're serving as role models to the other students in the school about, you know, school pride and respect and those types of values that are so important. There are just so many things, you know, that are going on that are just so positive, that are amazing. Too many to name in this podcast.
Yeah, there are so many things happening at schools that are just incredible, and the schools are creating these caring communities. And I really feel like it might go back to your Wonder Woman, Miss Pam Jones. You said that she made a choice when she saw you, and she chose to see a brave kid. And I think that's what we're seeing mirrored in all these schools where these great things are happening. So, Liz, as we start to wrap up, what do you wish your younger self knew about your current role? What would you go back and tell your younger self?
Oh my goodness. You know, you would think I would know the answer to this question. Um, I think, you know, on a professional level, because there's really two parts to us, right? There's sort of
Mhm,
the professional person that, you know, people see that you engage with, and then there's really that personal person.
mhm,
And I think, you know, on a personal level, I would tell myself that uh, you will experience uh, a life with a beautiful family
mhm,
someday, because when you're a child who's experienced so much trauma, you just wonder if that's in the cards for you, right? And I've been so blessed with three amazing kids and an amazing husband who's an educator. I love him so much. I married him, uh, and that's really one of those things that, as a young person in my circumstance, just couldn't even wrap my mind around that level of, you know, normalcy within a family
mhm,
unit, right?
mhm,
So that's a personal thing. But on a more professional level, I would have told myself that, because let me tell you this, I had a plan when I got to college at Auburn that it was going to be a clean slate for Liz Huntley, or it was Humphrey
mhm,
at the time, that all this stuff that had gone on in my house, in my community, and, you know, all those traumas that I was putting those things behind me, and I would be Liz Humphrey, at Auburn, college student, and do my thing. And I did. And you know, nobody really knew my story. Even the guy I was dating in college didn't really know the depth, you know, of my story.
mhm,
And I had some adults from my hometown that were hosting a big Say No to Drugs rally for the state of Alabama. And this was during the time when that initiative was really big, and you were seeing all these rallies. And they asked me to come and speak to the young people across the state, you know, to talk about the impact of drug use, you know, on your family unit as a whole. So really from the perspective of being a victim of it, right?
mhm,
Of drug abuse. And as I started talking, and I thought I was going to be able to articulate that in a way and just sort of lay out where I am now, stuff just came out, literally,
mhm,
Jennifer. I mean, I started
mm,
sharing the abuse and all of those things that happened, and how grateful I was, and how this person helped me, and that person helped me, and this person helped me at this stage, most of which were educators. And when I got done, I remember looking in the back of the room, and Mr. and Mrs. Watts, that was the couple that had asked me to come and speak at this event, they were crying
mm.
because they had no idea that all those things had happened. It was like an out of body experience. I mean,
Wow.
I just remember just starting to share this stuff. My boyfriend at the time was looking at me with his eyes as big as saucers, like, what? You know, he had no idea all those things had happened. And the teens, I mean, there was a ton of them, a couple hundred kids. They gave me a standing ovation, and so many of them came up and shared their own truths with me afterwards. And I realized that what I thought in my human natural mind was a badge of shame was actually a badge of honor, of honoring what God can do in a life. and that my story needed to be told, not pushed under a rug
Mm.
and hidden as if it never happened. And that was a pivotal moment for me. And I think if I were to talk to my younger self, it would be, you know, don't be ashamed. You celebrate these victories every time you take another step forward towards the goals that you have for your life, and you will get there, and you will then be able to use that story to help others. Others in both ways, others in young people that are on their own journey, struggling on where they're headed and what they want to be, and the adults around them that can make a difference to support them to help them get
Mhm.
there. And so I would definitely tell my younger self that, this is a beautiful story. Don't be ashamed.
It is. And wow, that is powerful. And you definitely have made a difference for so many people. And our listeners may want to connect with you. They may want to reach out to you or maybe have you come speak to their groups. What are the best ways for the listeners to connect with you?
Yes, absolutely. If it's anything related to Hope Institute, you can reach me at Liz Huntley at hopeinstitute.org. It's really simple. And if it's a speaking request, that there's lizhuntley.com. So that's a website where you can go in and make a request, and your request will be handled accordingly if that's something you're interested in. But I hope some of the listeners out there that may have not uh, joined our family at the Hope Institute or finding interest in doing so. We're about to get ready to start recruiting for next year's academies. We're going to have an academy session for year one in Montgomery next year at AUM at Auburn University in Montgomery. We'll continue to have our 2 classes here at Samford University for our Birmingham cohort. And we've got some exciting pilots that will be going on over in West Alabama. And of course, we'll continue the blueprint we have of the schools we serve in Northwest Birmingham, in North Alabama, West Alabama, and Birmingham as well. We're so blessed to be at a place now post COVID where we can spread our wings some and grow into a different region of the state. And we're looking forward to going to Central Alabama in the Montgomery area.
Yes, that's awesome. And I will be sure to put your contact information in the show notes so our listeners can connect with you. And Liz, you are a champion of teachers and schools and character. And I just appreciate your mission and your passion and your reminder that you give us all, to all educators, of the power that they have to change a school's life for the better. So thank you so much for sharing your time today and sharing your story with our listeners. And to our listeners, thank you for being here today, and we'll catch up next time.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks for listening to the Communities of Character podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others and post about it on social media or leave a rating and review. Thanks again and take care.